All right, so we're back with part 2 of fake news. I didn't want you to have to sit there like forever to watch one whole long video, so I've split it up. And I'm going to backtrack just a little bit to show you something about Google image search because that's a really valuable tool. And then I'm going to share a story or two with you that will walk you through the process I go through when I try to find out if something's true or not. So let's get started with the screen share. And I'm actually going to play this video for you. It's only about 2 minutes long, so it's not very long, but it will give you some really good tips on how to use image search and how to fact check your images. Let's back up. Here we go. Nope, that's too far. One more time. There we go.
So they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. But when you're searching for an image online, how do you know that every one of those words is true? We're going to show you a simple trick. You can do it with Google, and it's called a reverse image search. Okay, so there are a couple of different ways you can do this. The first one is to go to images.google.com. And you can go over there. This looks like a normal Google search page, but we have the Google Images icon, and you'll see the little camera search by image icon right here. That's key. Now, one of the first ways, so one of your first of the few options we'll show you today to do this is a drag and drop. So let's say you have an image saved on your desktop. Here it is. I'm just going to drag it right over here into the search bar. It will upload the file, and I get a whole list of hits where that image is in the page. And so I can then go and investigate all of these different sources where that image shows up. One of the second options you can do is to click the little search by image icon, and you can paste a URL in there. And let's say I've found a URL where this image I want to search is, and I can paste it in there and search. Once again, I will get a big list of hits of different sites where this image shows up. Let's talk about a third way that is even a little bit easier to do, and this is probably the simplest way and one that I highly recommend, only if you're using Chrome though. Let's say you're on a web page and you find an image and you want to know more about that image. You can right-click or control-click on the image and then scroll down here to search Google for image, and automatically a new tab will open up in your Chrome browser giving you the same results. So the last step you want to do, and the most important one, is probably to ask some critical questions about the results that you just found. You want to ask questions like, on what kinds of websites does this image show up? Are there any clues about where the image originated? Has the image been altered in any way, any place that you've seen it? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. For more information about asking critical questions with a reverse image search, or just about fact-checking in general, head on over to commonsense.org/education.
So Common Sense Media is actually one of my favorite sites. They have all kinds of really good resources there for how to parse through the media landscape that we're in. But again, one of the things you want to do is ask these questions like, what kind of website does this image appear on? Are there any clues about where this image originated? Has this image been altered? So there's all kinds of good information. So let me show you an example. So on Facebook, I got a friend request from this, from an account with this picture. And I'm trying to remember exactly what the details were. They said something like, you know, I'm a colonel in the army and I'm stationed in, I don't know, Afghanistan. And, you know, I saw your picture and thought it would be nice to connect. Yeah, it's one of those kind of connections, right? So the pictures looked a little dodgy on there. So I took this picture and I stuck it in a Google image search. I was really curious, like, is this person who they say they are? Well, it turns out, if I remember correctly, that this is a Serbian general, or he's from Estonia. Like, somebody just grabbed this picture off the internet, okay? Totally wasn't the person that they said they were. So I definitely blocked them and reported that account, and Facebook closed it down. So there's lots of different ways that you can use Google image search to verify your information. But like the guy in the video said, it's not enough just to search for the site. You have to critically analyze and critically look through the information that you find there. So Let's move on to a really interesting story. I think it's really interesting, and it's a couple of parts. So, a day in the life of fake news. So, you know how weird it is to, like when you're on social media and you see like different people that you know, but that don't know each other, but they post like the same sort of thing or they post opposite things. That happens a lot. It's kind of a weird convergence of networks, I guess. Anyhow, so one day I'm on social media and someone I know posts this picture and didn't have any comment on it right off the top. So he posts this picture, says they're in Dearborn, Michigan. Stop letting them in. Take care of America first, period. And then, of course, there's all these hands that say down with the USA, and there's some with Arabic, like I don't read Arabic. But just off the top of your head, can you think of any red flags here? Like, where did this information come from? Where it says they're in Dearborn, Michigan. Is there anything in the picture that indicates that they might be in Dearborn, Michigan? Like, I've never been to Dearborn, Michigan, but if you remember from the last video, I had never been in North Dakota either, and I caught on to that picture. So let's see where this goes. How do we proceed here? So this is the thread, and this is kind of why this is such a big deal to me, okay? Because as you're going to see, this evolves really quickly. So somebody posted that picture, somebody I know, a couple of these other people I don't know. So somebody says they need to be deported before they cause harm to us. They don't care about what this country has to offer them. Some random guy like, how are you doing? Somebody else being a little sarcastic, seems like they support our country, but then look at this dude. Just shoot them? Really? Like, we don't even know where they are. Anyhow, so I did what I often do when I have too much time on my hands. I probably shouldn't have taken this up, but it turned into like a really good exercise, actually. I said, this is fake news. Check the source and look up the facts. I did. Now, to be honest, at that point, I hadn't quite done that. So someone else comes in, I think this is the original poster, and says, well, the photo might be fake, but the attitude isn't. Now, does that ring a bell from the last video? Remember that guy that posted the picture of the girl in Chile and then said, well, you know, the photo doesn't apply to the situation. You know, the photo's not from the situation, but it's the same attitude. Is basically, he said basically the same thing, right? So I just piped in and I said, like, I don't know if this picture was taken in downtown Tehran. Like, there's no evidence there that it was in Dearborn, Michigan. I don't know anything about Dearborn. So he comes back and says, well, there are places in Dearborn, Michigan, but local law enforcement will not enter. Neighborhoods ruled by Sharia here in the United States, and that's not fake news. Okay, I've not heard of that. Well, let's find out. So I say, can you verify that with a reliable source? So someone else comes in, and this is their response. There have been multiple video and written pieces that have been published. Now, do you remember that truth by consensus thing? 40,000 people shared that one picture and said it was true. That doesn't make it true. Multiple video and written pieces doesn't make it true. Anyhow, so I did what any intelligent, critical thinking person would do. I contacted the city of Dearborn, Michigan directly and asked them about it. I got on their website, I looked around, I couldn't find anything directly about Arab influences or Sharia law or, you know, any of that stuff on their website, on the city of Dearborn, Michigan's website. But they happen to have a Facebook page, right? So I sent them a message. And here's what I basically said. So this is my Facebook message to the city of Dearborn government page. I kind of just said, hey, I'm a college professor. The funny thing is I was going to teach about this topic, well, about fake news in my class in the next day or two. And then this thing popped up, right? So I said, here, I'm a college professor. This is what I've heard. Somebody's posting this thing. You know, two things. Does the city or the police department have an official statement about this? And if not, can I get a statement from you about this? I just asked them a question. So they came back pretty quickly and responded. Now, I have no contacts in Dearborn, Michigan. I've never been to Dearborn, Michigan. I don't know anything about them. All I did was ask the question, okay? So here's what they said. Unfortunately, we're sometimes still part of the fake news drama on the internet. The information that many read is completely false. The city does have an official statement, which we released when the initial false information was posted online. It is a statement we still use today because nothing has changed. If you search Sharia on our website, you'll find it, but here's the link. Thank you for reaching out. We appreciate your work in helping others sort out the true facts. It turns out that this was from a satirical website, like a joke website, and they wrote up some silly story about this happening in Dearborn, Michigan, and people took it to be real. And so they actually have an article on their page where they kind of get up in arms a little bit. They're like, hey, we're named after a Revolutionary War hero. We're loyal Americans. We fly the flag. We're not under Sharia law. This is their very strong statement from 2013. Okay. This thing is still flying around 7 years later, this story. Anyhow, so that was useful. Like, took me like 2 minutes to write them a question. They wrote me back and I found out the truth. So this is what I replied to the end of that thread. Just because people can copy doesn't mean, it's reliable and valid. And I shared what the city of Dearborn, Michigan wrote about it. I bet you can guess there was no further response on this thread. Now, what was interesting about that, and I mentioned this, sometimes these things converge on social media. So here's part 2 of this. So at the same time, like, these were literally just a few posts away from each other. So I see the first one, these people all, say just like, can you give me a link that verifies this? And they get all up in arms, right? And then when I post like what the city of Dearborn says, the conversation stops. Just a few posts away is this video, okay? And this is a former student of mine who was always very well spoken, always curious about the truth, always wanting to know, but very proud American and is concerned about these things. So he sees this video and he posts it. All right. Now, at the time of this video, a couple of years ago, it had had 7.5 million views. And it's the Americans Against the Islamic Takeover website or Facebook page. And the video is titled Islamists Taking Over Dearborn, Michigan. Like, what the heck is it with Dearborn, Michigan, right? Dearborn, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit, is being taken over by Islam. Watch out. You're no longer in the USA in Dearborn. So he posts that and he says that's crazy. Like, he doesn't really make any other comments. And so this video, which I'm not going to show you, is irritating. It kind of shows this guy. Well, they're in a car and some guy's driving the car and the passenger's videoing the guy driving the car. We never get their names. And they're driving through supposedly Dearborn, Michigan. And they drive through this one couple of neighborhoods where on the grocery stores and on some of the businesses there's Arabic writing. And I don't read Arabic, so I don't know what it says. Okay, but they're driving through this neighborhood. All right. And the problem is, like, they don't say who they are and they don't say where they are. And as I'm watching this, and they're whipping this into a frenzy, like they're taking over. And this is just an example of what's happening all over America and all of this, right? And it's getting 7.5 million views. Like, people are watching this sucker and sharing it. What's the problem? Like, I could drive through Chinatown in San Francisco or Little Italy in Cleveland, Ohio, or any ethnic neighborhood in Los Angeles or New York City and focus my camera and say, oh my gosh, the Koreans are taking over LA, or oh my gosh, the Italians are taking over Cleveland. Look at all those pasta restaurants. It's ridiculous, right? You have like no context for this guy's video. And all he says is he's a lifelong resident of Dearborn, Michigan. So here's how this thread of conversation went. See if you can tell the difference. So this is my student that's posting. He posted the video and he's got the first comment. My understanding is this is not isolated. It's happening in multiple places. So I said, please check your sources and your facts about Dearborn. Most of what you see is fake news and out of context. So some other guy, like, I don't know who this other guy is. Obviously, we have my student as a mutual friend, says, it is true that Islam desires to subdue the world. It is also a strange paradox that liberals, now we know what it means when you put things in air quotes, right? That is inciting something. Liberals, for lack of a better word, support Islam, while Islam endorses things that are totally contrary to what liberals value. So I was getting a little bit irritated at this point because of the other thread, and I probably went a little linguistic on him. But you know, my premise on this isn't a liberal or a conservative issue. This is a matter of critical thinking. Like when you see these things, do you have the frame of mind to actually check the sources to find out where the stuff comes from, or you just push the share button? Oh, this must be true. I saw it on the internet, right? So this guy comes back. Oh, I don't disagree with that. I'm just pointing out what I learned. The word liberal is a loaded word, but he's the guy that keeps mentioning that word, right? So that's why I said that. And he goes, well, you don't know what I mean. Whatever. Now, okay. So at this point, I had to look this guy up, right? I was like super curious. Turns out he's like a 30-something business owner in the town I used to live in. And he's using the word whatever. Like that's a middle school kid thing, whatever. Anyhow. So I just told him I was trying to clarify, and I kind of gave him a little bit of my credentials. I do think critically and I do use language precisely, and I'm just trying to figure out what this guy's talking about. So that piece of the conversation aside, my student comes back and he actually wants to know, like, so how do you find out if this is true? When I tried to look into this more, I got stuff that argued on both sides. And he said something really profound. He said, finding out what is true is often difficult, if not impossible. All the news is biased because people are biased. But at the same time, if there is something happening that needs a response, then it is our responsibility to respond, right? So he wants to do the right thing. He's just trying to figure out, like, how do I get this figured out? Like, how do I know? So it seems that we must often act without knowing what is true, which is exactly what we don't want to do. And I kind of give him the whole thing I just told you guys. Like you could take 10 minutes of driving around Chinatown or Koreatown or Little Italy. What I had actually done was clicked on that Facebook page and then gone to the About section. And then a lot of the links were like not working and outdated, but I did find a web page, and it was like a really cheesy website. Like it didn't look legit. Like once you got off Facebook and into this person's or organization, whatever it is, into their website, it didn't seem legit. And so I said the narrator is attempting to draw a direct line between what he is seeing and politics he doesn't agree with. Okay, you're not given the name of the resident. There's no way to verify they're actually from that city. Like there's just so many pieces of the puzzle that don't add up that it is very suspect. Okay, because sometimes there's not like a ginormous red flag, but if you take a few minutes and look around, things start adding up. Okay. And so, I agreed with him. We do have an obligation to not spread rumors that are not otherwise substantiated. So, was there any other supporting evidence? So I messaged the Dearborn, the city of Dearborn, right? I got a really good response from them, but at the same time I messaged them, I also messaged the area chamber of commerce, because you know what a chamber of commerce does? They support business. So one of those posts had said, well, businesses are being driven out and there's areas where Sharia law rules, and none of that's good for business, right? So I messaged the Chamber of Commerce page, pretty much the same exact message actually that I sent the city. Took her a little bit longer to get back, but not much longer. It was within a day that I had a response. And she said, hi, I'm Jackie Lovejoy, the president of the Dearborn Chamber. Can you email me? All the stories are false. I have several videos and a letter I send out. And if you check our website on the front page, there's a news feed and all breaking new developments, new activities, etc. We do have a large Middle Eastern population, and that includes many religions. And she happens to be a history professor. And so we were kind of connecting on the professor level there. She was just like super, super excited to send me information about this. Because if the city of Dearborn gets a bad rap and people don't show up, like they don't come visit, that's bad for business. That's bad for the whole city. So the Chamber of Commerce, one of their roles is outreach and marketing and promoting business in the cities that they're in. Anyhow, happy Monday. So we did end up connecting. She did end up sending me a lot of stuff. So then I became curious. I was like, huh, okay, so I don't know anything about Michigan. Like in my brain, I sort of thought Michigan is a pretty much a blue state, like a Democratic state in my mind. Like I didn't have anything to verify that on. That's just kind of what I thought. And so I thought, well, okay, so maybe they're attacking this city. Um, maybe the conservatives are attacking the city because um, because they're a liberal state and whatever. I didn't know. So I thought, okay, well, how do we find out? So I went to the Michigan election result map. So Politico's got maps by state and by county for a lot of the elections, and you can just look. And so this is from the 2016 election results. Michigan's not a blue state. It's highly conservative. However, there are a couple of enclaves here. This whole area is the Detroit Dearborn area. So I'm like, huh, all right, that's interesting. And then when I went and looked, where Dearborn is in this little county down here at the bottom, okay, or almost the bottom of this picture anyhow. And sure enough, in the last election, and I'm not like getting into politics here. I'm looking for clues, like where would this information come from? And so this county definitely overwhelmingly voted Democratic, which tends to be a little more pro-immigrant. A Republican tends to be a little more conservative on immigration. Like they both kind of have the same ideals, I think, just different ways of achieving those. And so anyhow, is that a clue? Like, I don't know. Let me go back to that. I actually don't know. Like, is there a correlation between that and this rumor that keeps surfacing? I have no idea. It's just another piece of the puzzle to think about when you're verifying information. And so this was kind of nice. So that night, as I'm like writing up all these responses and things for my class that I'm going to talk to about the next day, because we're talking about social media also, I tagged the city of Dearborn and I said, it's a great story. Ask me about it tomorrow. And the city of Dearborn actually responded back. That was kind of cool. You never know who's going to reply on Twitter. So where do we go with all that? Verify your sources. And it doesn't take long. I can honestly tell you that whole train of thought with responding to the Facebook posts and writing to the Dearborn people and compiling all of that, like literally probably took me maybe 10 or 15 minutes, probably not even that long. It took me longer for sure to put the slides together than it took me to find out the true information about this picture that had thousands and thousands of posts. So here's one of the challenges. Can you teach an old dog new tricks? Okay. Lots of people are sort of stuck in their way. Like they believe what they believe, and they call that an echo chamber. Like you surround yourself with people who say the same thing you do. So you post something, and instead of somebody pushing back a little and saying, well, are you sure? Like, where'd that come from? And do you have a source? Instead of that, you get a lot of people, oh, yeah, that must be true. You're right. Yeah, rah, rah. And this happens all across the spectrum, all across the political spectrum. This is not inherent to one view or another. So the question is can you change that? Like, what can you do about that? So a relative of mine whom I love dearly, dearly love this person, was kind of doing some of this, kind of posting some stuff, like kept posting some stuff that just wasn't true. And I kept kind of back channeling in a polite way, that's kind of fake. That's not really true. And finally, he asked me, well, how do I know? He had the same question as my student did, actually, my former student. How do you know? And so we had some of those conversations about how you know. And so one of my kids posted this, I think to Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. I don't know. They posted it somewhere. I should have kept where it was. Anyhow, so posted this. All 6 U.S. Science Nobel Prize winners this year are immigrants. Last year, all 6 U.S. Nobel Prize winners were also immigrants. I'm sharing this in case you think immigrants are ruining America. So safe to say, right, this is the opposite message of the Dearborn, Michigan pictures and video. Right, that one's saying immigrants are ruining America. This one's saying, look, immigrants are getting Nobel Prizes for the U.S. Okay. So my older relative sees this and says, well, you might want to do some background research to clarify the post. I did for 2017. Generalizations are misleading. And I had to laugh and I was like, oh yeah, high five, because he's actually thinking about where the information comes from, not just stuff that validates his biases, you know, or or opposes his biases. Like, let's just look at all of it. Come to find out that it wasn't that easy to find a list of Nobel Prize laureates for this year. It was actually a little, you think they would just have lists by year and subject on their website, but they did not have those lists. So I did ferret it out. Some of them were naturalized citizens. It was a mixed bag there. Wasn't totally false, wasn't totally true. Anyhow, the point in all this is you have a lot of control over what you see and what you do on social media and how you propagate fake news. If Go back to the other video, or maybe I'll just pull it up here. Let's see if I can find the slide again. If you read something and you say, oh, holy cow, that must not be true. There's no way that can be true, or that makes me angry, or, you get like some sort of emotional reaction out of it, you probably ought to take a deep breath and you probably ought to look at the sources. And it really doesn't take that long. Really doesn't take that long. Let's go back to this list of things because it's worth repeating. Consider the source. So on that video, it was like Americans Against Islam. Okay, off the bat, that's a bias name. Like, you already know right from the start what they're thinking. Okay, so consider the source. Now, that doesn't mean their information is false. That just means it's coming from a perspective, and you should know what that perspective is. And then read beyond the headlines. So that's what I did on both the picture and that video, is I didn't just like share based on the headline. I actually went and did a little looking, like, what are they saying? Who is the author? Do they have any supporting sources? Like, if they say a lot of, well, according to unnamed sources, or they don't list any sources at all, oh, big red flags on that. And then check the date. Is it current? Is it something, useful? Is it a joke, or is it satire? Like, if you're pulling something from, I don't know, The Onion or the Babylon Bee or Saturday Night Live, okay, they're just messing with you. Just have a laugh at it, okay? But you have to be able to tell. And then, like I said, check your own biases. You'll be tempted to just see something that agrees with what you believe in and say, oh, yeah, that must be true. But it might not have anything to do with truth or even that situation. And then look it up. There's some fact-checking sites out there. You can ask a librarian. Librarians love this stuff. That's their whole, like, they love looking up information. So don't get sucked in. I guess that's the main point. Don't get sucked into the fake news grind, especially now. Okay, we're in a political season. We've got this pandemic. There's, all kinds of weird stuff going on. 2020 has been a nut year. Okay, don't get sucked in. Take 30 seconds, do a search, see what comes up, and use your critical thinking skills. One of my mentors is Howard Rheingold, and he's been teaching about community on the internet since like the 80s, or probably even before that. Like, he's been around. And he always says the very best crap detector that you can install, like everybody tries to put filters on their internet for their kids and stuff. He says the very best crap detector you can install is right between your ears. You just need to level up. And I can promise you that once you start noticing this stuff, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's fake. You don't always have to engage it with other people, but for sure you shouldn't share it. So I hope you found this useful. It's everywhere. It's so easy to share, but don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution.